It's time, as Michael Buffer would say, or Bruce Buffer, or whoever, whichever of the Buffer brothers. I had lunch with them once. It's a great story. One I'm not going to tell.
Yeah.
I'm the Prez, Lawrence Prezman. You're watching Meet the Experts, powered by WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com, and the Gold Sheet, which doesn't have a logo up because we've ran out of space. Bryan Leonard with us. My friend, how are you? It's been a while.
It has been a while, and as you can tell, we're locked down and I can't get to the barber. So this is what you get today.
Well, that's okay, dude. I mean, in all seriousness, you've never been known for a man of exceptional hair quality. But you do actually have great hair, Bry.
I do have exceptional hair, just not the great stylist.
No, I agree. And, you know, me and you know each other. We've known each other for years and years. And yes, you legitimately, as a 72-year-old man, you have exceptional hair.
I would love to get to 72 at this point.
Yeah, me too, bro. How far off are you?
I'm 58.
I'm 51 in a month. I'll be in quarantine likely for that time period. Bry, great show today. I've got 10 or so questions I'm going to ask you. We're going to start right off the bat. Just before we get there, I just want to make mention, and I'm going to be saying this throughout the show, we have changed our video schedule up, everybody. Monday and Tuesday, we will be doing Meet the Experts. So today is the last Meet the Experts of the week. Tomorrow, we release a new show. It's called Straight from the Strip. It's with Kelly Minty and VR. It's going to be excellent. We will be doing that show every Wednesday live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thursday will be Betting 101. Minty and Teddy, they'll be doing baseball this Thursday, so check back, 1 p.m. Eastern live show. And Friday, we're doing the Pony Pundits with Marco D'Angelo and Sig. It's with an S. And that'll be 1 p.m. on Friday. So this is the last Meet the Expert show of the week. The following Monday, we'll be back. Dave Williams will be with us. We'll be talking poker, cooking, and sports betting. One of the most colorful men around and handsome as a mother. I mean, Bry, no disrespect to your good looks. Dave Williams is all world.
That guy not only is good looking, intelligent, but he gets the ladies, and he's got the life that we all wish we had.
And you know what? He is a really, really great guy. Like, in all seriousness, he is as nice a guy as I've known, and he's doing me a big favor coming on the show. And we all know Dave. He is just so. I mean, this guy. Do you know he came second in Master Chef?
I don't pay any attention to that, but that's awesome.
Yeah, I've gone for dinners with him in Vegas, and it's actually amazing stories. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that on Monday. I've got Johnny texting me, showing live on YouTube for you guys when logged in. I don't know what that means, Johnny, but okay. Zika, nice to see you, my brother. Hope you're well. Bri, let's get this thing on the road. Question number one. How did you get started in this industry?
Well, I grew up in Cleveland, and you'll find a lot of the Ohio, Pittsburgh situation in a lot of the sports books out here. Obviously, the mob was big in Pittsburgh, and so there's a lot of gaming in Youngstown and that area. Anyway, but I grew up in Cleveland. I went to high school with Phil Steele, who you've seen on ESPN. He's published the Power Sweep newsletter. He's got that great preseason magazine. And we were friends in high school. We played on the same softball team, and we were very competitive. And back when he was in school, even, he was started doing the Power Sweep newsletter. And so obviously I was a sports bettor at the time. I was basically, the NBA was what I did. But since I knew Phil, I got introduced to this whole thing. And when we started out, he had a print shop, and I believe he still may have a print shop. But that's how he cut down on the cost for his making his newsletter and all. But anyway, in the basement, he set me up with a phone, and I have people call in to get my NBA plays. And that was late 70s, early 80s, that kind of thing. So that's how I got started in it. And also for Cleveland, Mark Lawrence is from that area. And Mark is a guy who is very well known. He's down in Florida right now, taking care of his health down there in that beautiful weather in Florida. But yeah, that's how I got started. And I was a bettor first, and then I got into the pick selling industry after that. But yeah, I owe it all to Phil Steele. I don't know if that's good or bad, but he was a guy who, when we were younger, we'd all go out partying. And Phil was a guy who worked his ass off, and he deserves everything he's ever gotten. The only bad part is he never met a girl when he didn't have money. So he's been married twice, divorced twice. Everybody else I know that didn't have money when they were younger, they're married to their first wife. So I'm just glad after having money, I don't have to go out and look for a woman right now. I mean, you're a guy who has a good living and has a good money. I wouldn't want to get into the dating scene right now if I had money.
I think anybody who is in the dating scene, however, would rather have money. I want to do a follow-up question to that, but first I want to ask Carmine Bianco, who is in the chat room. Carm, what the hell are you talking about? You're going to do a video on your sauce? Please elaborate. I want to watch that video. Guys, Carm is a monster cook. And Carm has requested a redo on his video. Hey, what's up, handsome Kyle? Carm, if you make me a big lasagna, I will do a redo on your video. So there you go. You now know what it is going to take. Bry, you mentioned Phil Steele and you mentioned Mark Lawrence. And look, I've never had the pleasure of meeting Phil Steele. I know Mark, and I know Mark really well. Mark and I have shared dinner together many times. He is truly one of the probably genuinely, I mean, right up there with Ralph Michaels, one of the genuinely nicest guys I've ever met in this industry. I mean, just such a pleasure of a person. And I know he's a competitor of ours, but I got nothing but exceptionally kind words to say about Mark Lawrence. What I wanted to mention to you was there's really kind of maybe 3 or 4 waves or generations of handicapping. I mean, it's not an industry that goes... The horse tip industry goes all the way back, 100 years or so. But the handicapping industry, I mean, if you look at the pioneers, Mark Lawrence, Jim Feist, Phil Steele, and some of the schmucks, Feiner, Allen, and on and on and on, where would you put you? I would say you and Marco, and you're like the second wave. Would you agree?
Yeah, I followed Marco for years in the Mark Lawrence Wise Guys contest. I didn't know anything about him. I just knew he was always one of the leaders. And when he give out a play, I take a look at it. If he says play Boston College in the newsletter, I said, okay, well, if it's good for Marco and he's always done very well in this contest, I'm going to go take a look at Boston College a little bit deeper than what I've done in the past. And yeah, I worked a little bit with Phil Steele. Ralph Michaels, as you talked about, was big at Phil Steele, maybe 10 years after I was there. I didn't actually work for Phil, but I would help him out around the office, do some, taxes and things like that for him. But, Mike Neri was around. He was Mark Lawrence's number 2 man. Mike Neri, I believe, is still out there. And a lot of guys that have come along since then. Brad Powers was at North Coast with Ralph and Phil. And if Brad, we tried to get him on videos, but he wouldn't come on because of the last place he worked, last place a lot of us worked. I didn't want to upset the owner, but now he's a free agent, so hopefully we'll be able to get him on some videos this year.
We call the last place you, Marco, Spreitzer, Brad. We call that place the place that keeps giving. Hey, Vivi.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, what has changed in the industry? I mean, you know, you go back so far. I mean, you know, both you and I know Jim Feist very, very well. Again, you know, Jim has a bad reputation according to a lot of people. The nicest guy. I mean, Jim is actually a mentor to me. I have more love for Jim than I do for a lot of people. I mean, Jim is unbelievable as a human being. What has changed in this industry? I mean, I know how bad it was with the phone calling and the this, that, and the other, but rather than strictly speaking about the marketing, what have you noticed changing in regards to the selling of picks, the style of picks, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, it's so much different. You talk about the Jim Feist era. That was boiler rooms, and I've never been with a boiler room. I've never done any of that. I have been on a few websites that those guys have been on, but that's not a boiler room situation. I would never want to bother somebody at home. But yeah, it's gone from starting off at the boiler rooms. Then it was 900 numbers, and Marco will tell you as well as I will. The 900 industry was huge. You spoke of Jim Feist. Jim Feist used to have porno lines on the 900 sex
Yep.
lines. That's how he made a lot of his
Yep.
money, and he was a smart guy for doing it. You know, every guy likes to hear some compliments and things like that once in a while. But yeah, the 900 service, all you had to do, it took no talent whatsoever. You pick up the phone, you dial in, hit in your codes, and say, play Boston College. And that was it. That was your entire amount of handicapping that you had to do on those games, and you'd make sales. And the guys that were able to, after 900 lines went away, the guys who were able to stay in the industry were guys who had to work harder. And so the guys who, you know, just told you to play Boston College, they were gone. Now you had to get out there and tell them the reasons why you played this game, and had to make sense doing it. And then you had to win. And so now, years down the road, we've got to be on a website, WagerTalk, a leader in this industry, where you've got to get out there and not only explain how you make your pick, you've got to come off as a knowledgeable person. You got to come off as a real person. And before, you know, people didn't know you. They're just hearing your voice on the 900 lines. Now they get to know you a
Yep.
little bit. And that's what I like. It used to be, and I'll mention Jim one more time. It used to be when the boiler rooms were around, you would see some of these guys, Mike that used to work for Jim Feist, he passed away. Jim Feist, you'd see them in a casino, and people knew him. They knew him for the TV shows, and they say, "Hey, Jim Feist," and they would ignore him because they didn't know who he was. I had a run in at the Win one time, and Jim Feist was there, and I go, Jim Feist," and he's ignoring me, and I go, "Jim Feist is Bryan Leonard." And all of a sudden, he stops in his tracks, turns around, and that's the kind of thing. Back in those years, I didn't believe in the boiler rooms. I'm glad I never participated
Yeah.
in it. But that was the thing, is there was the people paid you the money, and that was all there was to it. Nowadays, you got to win. You get paid for the money. You got to win. I'm in the casinos all the time, at least not now because of the lockdown, but I'm in the casinos all the time. People come up to me. I'm not worried about somebody trying to cause me harm.
Off me,
So,
yeah.
uh, yeah, and those guys had to deal with that, and that's the choice they took. You know, back in those days, that's the way they did it. But now I'll see guys in each of the casinos and all, and we get along great. I love it when somebody comes up and wants to take a picture or have a conversation with me. That's one of the joys of being in this industry right now.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And I want to stay on this topic for a sec, but I just want to bring in, you know, a couple of the listeners were live on YouTube and Twitter, Periscope. So my woman Vivian mentions Kyle and talks about if he has biceps, tries, abs. Vivian, handsome Kyle is a freaking specimen. The dude has muscles in areas that we didn't even know muscles existed. Kyle, feel free to send my woman some pics, you know. I mean, it might be really excellent for me later on. You know, get her all excited. No problem. I got no issues with that, dude. And yeah, I think you should change your name to Handsome Kyle. I think that should be your name from here on in. I love it. Bry, you know, when you were doing, you were working all over the place. Did you used to have games of the year? Did you used to have these big hyperbole plays, hyper marketed, you know? And if so, we are not going to be, we don't do that at WagerTalk at all. What do you prefer from your perspective?
I love it the way it is now. I'm a conservative person when it comes to that kind of stuff. We're allowed on our site so many 5% plays. I never even come close to that amount of 5% plays in a month. But yeah, the other places we would provide plays. There were certain sites that if you don't put out a game of the month or a game of the year every day, you don't get a sale.
Yes.
So your thought process is, do I get kicked off of this website because I don't want to do it? Or do you play along with the game? Luckily, now where I'm at now, there's no game to be played, so I don't need to worry about that. When I do put up a 5%, I've been tremendous on them. Over the last year, 71%.
Phenomenal.
But I don't have many. And that's the advantage, is I could get in my write-up and I say, hey, you know, we're 71%, but that's over the last year. I said, you know, I don't put out many. You know, I've gone close to 2 months without putting out 5 stars. So it's something that is very important to me. The problem we've had in this industry is everybody wants the big play, and they still want the big play. But I think it's lessened over the years. It used to be, you know, back in the olden days, you call up, you know, an 800 line or whatever to get scores, and they have guys on there, and the guy would say, oh, I haven't had a 5% play or a 5-star play in, you know, 2 weeks. Well, I've got one today, and it would win. And then the next day, he'd have another 5% play, and it would win, and another 5-star the next day, and it would win. Well, how do you go a month without having a 5%, and then all of a sudden you got them 10 days in a row because you've won?
Yep.
You know, that's just the way the industry was back then. If I'm not betting it for more than what my normal amount is, I'm not giving it to my clients that way.
Yeah, and I love it. And I agree. I think, you know, actually me, Rick and Johnny had a call today, a management call today, talking about stuff and just reiterating the fact that we're never, ever going to games of the year. We're going to keep in that grinding environment. It's better for everybody. Real quick. Yes, Johnny, me and Kyle do shop at the kids section. Dude, I'm going to move this mic for a second. Okay, so Johnny, these are pecs right here. You see, I can move them left, right, biceps, right, shoulder muscles. That's why we wear short, whatever, tight shirts, because me and Kyle work out like beasts. The flex off. Kyle, I want you on the show in the next 2 weeks. Me and you are just going to do a flex off. That's it. Bring weights. We are going to flex for 1 hour while everybody talks around us. Bryan, any mentors in this industry? Anybody that you learned from?
Yeah. Like I said, I started off with Phil Steele, but my main mentor, I'm not even sure if he knows it, was Mark Lawrence, because not only did he teach me things, he told me the right way to go about doing something and the wrong way. I'll give you a story about when I was starting out and I had my own service and I was looking to advertise. Back then, a lot of different, you know, Phil Steele had his magazine, Mark Lawrence had his magazine. There were other magazines out there. And I'm not going to give you the name of the person, but there was a person out there who had a magazine with a good amount of subscribers, good amount of buyers off the newsstands. And I asked Mark, do you think that's a good place to advertise? And he said, well, do you want to be affiliated with him? And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, if people see your ad in his magazine and they've gotten burned by this guy from like an 800 number or, you know, boiler room salesman in the past, they're going to think the same of you. And I thought about it and I said, you're right. I don't want to be anything to do with that. And that's something I've learned over the past. In other places where I've worked, I've been promised certain things and the same people have been promised certain things and never worked out that way. So I've gotten a little wiser over the years. And now I get to work with my friends. I get to work with buddies. Everybody on the website, everybody at WagerTalk I like. I enjoy spending time with them, and I trust them. And it's hard to work with a business where everybody is on the same page, trying to do the same thing, trying to do what's right. And I love it. I could never ask, probably never get a raise from this, but I could never ask to working for anybody else based on what we've done at WagerTalk. And that's why so many other guys out there that I respect want to work with us. And it's a great place to be. And hats off to you and Johnny and Rick and Marco. You guys have done just a tremendous job.
Thanks, my brother. Vlog, there you have been mentioned. Congratulations. Jordan Kane writes, Minty, any news on the Olympics thing you and Kelly spoke about? Johnny, we need to talk about that. I am absolutely radically opposed to this Olympic thing between Minty and Kelly. So my vote is ixnay on that. These are professional, dynamic, smart women that are not going to be objectified or glorified in any kind of stupid contest that men wouldn't do. Okay. Bryan, you started in this industry long before the internet existed. What I'm curious about, because I actually started in this industry in 1999 and the internet did exist, not to the degree that it is now. Yeah, I know, Johnny, it was their idea, but I'm still against it. Where did you get your information, man? Like, right, it's so readily available today, but back then, I mean, what did you do to get your info?
Yeah, I've mentioned Phil Steele a few times here. He was ahead of the market on this. Back in his Power Sweep days, he had a deal where this was back when fax machines were around. You kids, you ask your grandfathers about fax machines. But Phil would have a fax service, and people would fax their local football information from their local newspaper to North Coast, and they would get a free issue of the Power Sweep newsletter, which was about $100. So that's how he got the information from all the schools. I didn't have that. Obviously, at that time, I didn't have my own newsletter, although I had a basketball newsletter called the Round Ball Report, football called the Pigskin Report a few years later. But there was a local newsstand in North Olmsted, Ohio, and I would go there, and I knew the owner. And every Sunday, I would buy every newspaper from around the country. This was back when I did NBA, strictly NBA. Any team that had a major newspaper, I would buy the Sunday edition of their newspapers. So I'd come home with 30 stacks of, keep in mind, some of these teams had cities had 2 or 3 different newspapers. And so I'd come back and I'd have so many newspapers in my house. It would cost me a fortune every week, but I got great information on these teams. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I had so much success in the NBA over the years. Since then, I've heard of guys who would have people work in the airports. They would find guys that would clean planes, and people would leave their local newspapers on the plane. They'd grab those up, and then at the end of the night, deliver them to the other guys. But yeah, you had to really work back years ago. And I remember when the internet came around, and I could get, the Salt Lake Journal and all these others, the Sacramento Bee, and all these just from a click of the mouse, and it was so much easier. But then again, you're on the same level as everybody else. It made it easier for everybody else. And, with the internet coming around, that's what evened up everything. The thing with the internet was I was now equal to Jim Feist and the guys who'd been in business before I was. The bad news is the kid coming home from junior high school and nobody knew who he was. He would put up a picture of his dad or whatever. He was equal to me. So that's what the great equalizer was, the internet.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it literally changed everything. And I want to talk about that in a second. Sean Bird, Kelly writes, Kelly in Vegas is every bit as good as 90% of the men who sell their picks. Kelly in Vegas is every bit as good as 99% of the men who sell their picks. Bryan can attest to that. We all watch her in utter amazement. She is as good as it gets, period. As far as Kyle and I doing a flex off and why that doesn't objectify us, because really, who the hell wants to watch me do a flex off? I'm a 51-year-old man who thinks he has muscles. Kyle, different story. Early 30s, actually has muscles. But I just do this as a joke. And Minty, if it means anything, Vivian came over early this morning while I was sleeping, rode the Peloton, 45-minute ride. She did her cardio. She killed it. She beat her best score, so way to go, Viv. Bry, we've talked a lot about the industry in the past. We've talked a lot about the changes of the industry to date. Where do you think this industry is heading?
Let me do a quick touch on Kelly for a second here. When Kelly started out, she would do things with Matt Yeomans, who now works for Feist. And at the time, I thought it was Matt's girlfriend. Kelly was very nice to me, but I thought she was just somebody's girlfriend. Then after a little while, I realized
Chauvinist.
This girl knows her stuff. And now she's got more connections than anybody I've ever met. And I actually texted her the other day because she has told us about 4 weeks ago about the virus. And she said how bad it was going to be. And I was in a room with Teddy Savransky, and Teddy's a very knowledgeable guy as well. And we kind of laughed. We said, there's no way that's going to happen. And I had to tell her that I said, you made a believer of me. You had that information. She probably had it at the same time the U.S. government did. Unfortunately, the president didn't listen to it. But she's gotten such good information. She knows professional ball players. She's got great information. So what I started with her, it's not the same. When she started out, she's in her little short shorts and doing videos and stuff, and that definitely hurt her. But thank God I didn't do that.
Well, we all want to see you in short shorts, Bry. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. She made a believer out of me, and I'm very skeptical about a lot of the people in our industry, and I trust her for any kind of information she gives me. Now, you want to get back to your question again? I'm sorry.
Oh, Bry, listen, this is a casual show, and Vlog, just stop, dude. Please, like, we're begging you, bro. You're out of control. I mean, look, I know that inside of there is a good human being, but enough with the sexual references, and definitely don't pick on Johnny D. He is the Mac Daddy of WagerTalk and has the power to ban. Also, everybody, make sure to click the bell. I don't know where it is. I don't know what it is, but Johnny keeps telling me click the bell. That way you'll know when the live show starts. Bry, the question was, where do you think the industry is headed?
I think live betting is, in Europe, live betting is huge. It's the majority of the betting. It's been really slow to advance here in the United States. I sit there and I'll handicap for hours on how to give out my plays and the whole bit, the pregame betting. And I can usually tell let's say it's a hockey game. I can usually tell within the first 10 minutes of that hockey game if I get a winner or if I've got a loser based on how the game is being played as opposed to how I thought it was going to be played. You go into it with preconceived ideas. You think these teams are going to, play a little bit more defense. Let's look at college football. You think one team, we see all the time where a team's got Kansas City Chiefs that can score, boom, boom, boom. Their team's going to try to run the ball, take the time off the clock, and all of a sudden the other team comes out and starts throwing, knowing the only way they can compete is to try to match Kansas City's offense. We didn't know the game plan coming into the game. Watching the first few series in a football game, the first half a period in hockey, you know the game plan. So you've got a far better chance of winning that bet after that small amount of time. So I think live betting is the way to go. I use it for baseball. I use it for hockey. My problem is I need to watch the actual games to get my best ability to handicap that game as it goes on. There's plenty of things I use, like in college basketball, 3-point shooting, 2-point shooting, that kind of thing that are off the norm. I use that for some of my smaller bets. But by watching the games, you can definitely get a lot better winning percentage in live betting.
And guys, just to make mention, we're actually going to, when sports comes back, we're going to start dabbling in live betting as well. We're going to be doing a show. We're going to probably start once a week, maybe Monday Night Football, where we're going to do a show live on YouTube, Periscope, and all the other places that is strictly focused on live betting. Also, for all people who are listening now that missed the beginning, Meet the Experts will only be on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday will be Straight from the Strip, a show with Kelly, Minty, and Gianni, and that is going to be, that's just going to be an unbelievable watch. Thursday will be Betting 101, and Johnny, one of Sean Bird mentions, and hey, Sean, I'm not in Kingston often, but if I am, I will let you know. Sean Bird said, let's do a show teaching people how to do NFL power rankings. I actually think that would be a really good show. I don't think we need to focus on NFL specifically. I think the concept of doing power rankings is the same for all sports. So we should definitely add that to the list. But yes, so Monday and Tuesday will be Meet the Experts. Wednesday will be Straight from the Strip with Minty, VR. Ace. God, he's got so many freaking names. And
I just call him Dude.
Just the Dude. And Kelly. Thursday will be Betting 101 with Teddy and Minty. And Friday will be the Pony Pundits with Marco and Sig. And then Saturday, Kyle and I will be doing live workouts. So anybody who wants to join us for those live workouts, Kyle will basically just scream at you until you lift more than you've ever lifted before. Bry, who's your favorite band?
Before we get to that, we have done many videos of making power ratings in the past, so go back and look. I've done a few of them myself, explained what I look for. Favorite bands, well, I got to say Metallica, Queensryche, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath.
Wow.
Yeah, AC/DC, the old AC/DC.
Yeah, so AC/DC doesn't fit in there for me. Like, I respect AC/DC, but I find that a lot of their songs sound the same. Their power chord is used over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I think from a musician, by the way, Minty, go and Google all these bands so you know what we're talking about. Look, Sabbath are just masters. I mean, to put them with Queensryche and Priest is, Sabbath stands alone in that genre of music.
Well, yes, for that genre of music.
Yeah.
If you're looking for talented musicians, Dream Theater is one of the best. Rush, obviously, for that type of music. Talented musicians, obviously.
Rush is not a heavy metal. Rush is like kind of.
No, they're not heavy metal. I like Jethro Tull. I like a lot of different types of music.
Tull stands alone, and there's nobody that sounds like Tull.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I'm a huge Black Sabbath fan, so I'm with you there. And Diary of a Madman by Ozzy, that's, a top 20, 30 album of all time. So yeah, I like the kind of music you like. It's not my favorite. I'm more classic rock, a little bit softer. But the double bass of Black Sabbath and the bass player in Black Sabbath and the guitar player. I got to believe that, you put maybe Frank Zappa aside and, Pink Floyd aside. I got to believe Black Sabbath for musicianship's a top 5 band of all time.
Yeah, the bass player and lead guitarist definitely the best. I don't know. Did you ever see Black Sabbath with Dio, Ronnie James Dio?
No, but wow.
Oh, the 2 best shows I've ever been to. I saw him play here in Vegas. I saw him play in Reno. The 2 best shows I've ever been to, and I've seen 1,000 concerts. I've seen AC/DC, Black Sabbath, Queensryche, Metallica, each at least 10 times, 10, 20 times. that was the most powerful two concerts I've ever seen in my life, and it was just amazing. Last night, Metallica did a show on YouTube and Facebook from last year in Ireland, and we watched that last night, the wife and I, and that was tremendous. Tremendous musicianship out of these bands, and they've got the great tunes to go along with it.
Kyle, Tupac or Biggie? To me, that one's easy. I love Biggie a lot more than I do Tupac. I find his music has more melody to it. So I'm going with Biggie. I know Minty's going with Tupac, but Minty likes country music a lot, so her opinion doesn't actually count. Brian.
We have a lot more in common than what I thought.
Oh, you can't. Dude, country music.
My wife loves country music. I've been to some shows. If it wasn't for the beer, I'd fall asleep. I'd fall asleep if it wasn't for the beer.
You know, it's funny. Johnny Detroit's wife loves country music. She made him go to Luke Bryan and Garth Brooks. And
that's what I saw.
Yeah.
That's one of them I saw. I had to go to Laughlin. Marco brought his wife. God, I couldn't wait to get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's hard enough to listen to one country song. I cannot imagine having to listen to 25 in a row. Like, I mean,
and they all sound the same.
Exactly the same. Yes, Johnny, you went.
I love the way the country artists deal with their fans. That's wonderful. I love that. I
agree.
They're really down to earth with their fans. I give them all the credit in the world for that. But it's just boring music to me. Now, Southern rock, I like Southern rock.
Absolutely.
Leonard Skinner, Blackfoot, Molly Hatchet. I mean, I like that. But regular country is a little bit too mellow for me.
I love the song Willin' by Little Feat. I'm a huge Southern rock fan myself. I mean, Freebird is a masterpiece. And I think Simple Man is the best Southern rock song.
Simple Man.
Shine
Down. Have you heard the Shine Down version of Simple Man?
No, please email it to me.
Awesome. Just get on YouTube. Great voice, great song. Wonderful.
I was saying Simple Man is the best Southern rock song ever, but that's actually not true. It's the second best. Can You See by the Marshall Tucker Band stands alone.
I like it, but I wouldn't put it up there.
It's the vocals, the vocal line, and his particular voice, just unbelievable. Bri, you've had the pleasure of meeting a whole ton of people in this industry. I have no doubt when you first met me, you didn't like me. That seems to be a general thing. You can talk about that if you want. I'm good with that. Can you share some stories, some color?
Yeah. I have met a lot of the people in the industry, just about everybody. And we just look at life a little bit different. I don't think I like you as a person, but the things that you value in life and the things that I value in life aren't on the same page. And that's the only thing. But I've had the pleasure of meeting Billy Walters. And I could count on probably one hand the amount of people I know that have met Billy Walters. And I met him because of Ralph Michaels, who had a previous relationship with him with North Coast. At one point, he was thinking about buying the Power Sweep newsletter. So Rolf has had a chance to meet him. And one day we were at the Mirage, and it was a very humbling experience because, as you know, when we're out in public, people come up to us and make you feel really good. You make you feel like you're doing something. And I met Billy Walters, and he'd never heard of me, which was a great thing because I've been in the industry at that point probably 25 years, and he'd still never heard of me. That was a humbling experience, but I needed it, and it worked very well for me, and I still tell it to this day. But a real nice guy, real down-to-earth guy. There's many people that I've met over the years. I talked a little bit about Jim Feist and some other guys. When you meet people in person, regardless of what their persona is, I got to tell you, there's very few people. I can only count on maybe 2 or 3 people in my life that are in this industry that I just don't like. And most people want the best for themselves. They want the best for their families and all their friends, and they want to win for their clients. And not everybody does that, but as long as that's your goal and you're doing the best you can to reach that goal, you're staying up on reading all the books, you're staying up on everything that's happening in the markets. That's one of the big changes from now as opposed to before. Is when I started out years ago, nobody knew. You go in different casinos, you get a point differential everywhere else. That's the way it was. There was no strict line that you're betting into. Now all the casinos have the same lines basically. So you've got to learn how to read the markets. And I've learned, you talk about people that the first time you meet them, you don't like them. I told Steve Fezzik is a good friend of mine. I like Steve, but I told him, I said, the first time I met you, I thought you were an asshole. And he says, you're not the first person to tell me that.
You
he
felt
just comes
that
off
way about me, Bry, and I do.
Yeah.
I do like the diplomatic approach that you took when discussing me and how my values are different to yours. That is not true at all, dude. I value the exact same things as you value. I'm just an arrogant, narcissistic SOB, and that rubbed you the wrong way. But you know me now, Bry, and you know that's not who I am.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, when we go out, when you're in town, I got to be honest with you. You and Johnny come to town, you always order the expensive foods, you order the expensive drinks. You're the guys who sit in the Cosmo and order a $20 cocktail when I can walk across the street to another casino and get the same thing for $5.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah, I
would
drink,
rather spend that $15 somewhere else.
I don't drink,
What's
so
that?
I don't order $20 cocktails,
okay.
But I do respect what you're saying. Minty, somebody asked NWA, Kyle, Handsome Kyle, NWA or whatever, Dead Stream or something. Minty, NWA does not stand for no whining allowed. I know that you're used to all the whining that is consistent in country music. It actually stands for something else. My kid and I have been watching American Idol. I admit it. I watched 3.5 hours of American Idol last night. Luke Bryan is one of the judges, and these women and guys go up there and they sing these country music songs. And Luke Bryan's response is, you need to have a little bit more whine towards it. You need to show some angst and upsetness. Minty, it's not no whining allowed. Bri, what are your favorite sports? Minty, I love you being on the show. You got to log on every day at 1:00. You're like literally one of the best parts of the show. And Vivian, this is for you. There you go, Viv. Bri, what sports do you not handicap, and what is your favorite to handicap, and why both?
All right. Since you talked about Minty, yes, it's true. Minty is just as sweet and nice as she comes off on videos. She's just a sweetheart. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met. After seeing, like, for example, on videos like Marco and I and Rolf, let's say we're all doing videos, we're all on a losing streak. Nobody's happy unless Minty is on that, and she is just so sweet and she just brightens up the set. I got to tell you, Minty is a sweetheart. For those who have not met her, she's exactly the same in person as she is on the videos. Okay, getting back to the question, I only handicap the major sports. I only started handicapping hockey 3 years ago when Las Vegas got a team. And to me, hockey is very easy to handicap because the luck factor is so high in hockey. You watch a hockey game and you'll go to a game in the first period, a team has got 10 shots on goal, the other team's got 1, the score is 0-0. That tells me that there's a lot of value on that team that's just being able to get to those shots on goal, and yet the line doesn't change. It's so much easier to handicap, especially, I talked about live betting. Baseball is another one. It's a major luck factor. You've got 5 different teams in one, basically, because you've got your team and you've got 5 starting pitchers, and on the season, most teams use 10 starting pitchers. So you've really got 100. You've got 10 different teams for each team, so you got 300 different to work about, and those are to me the more the merrier, which is why people usually win in college basketball, because college basketball has got so many different teams to handicap. But from a fan standpoint, hockey and baseball, I love them both. Football is what brings in the money. basketball I've done for years, but to actually sit down and watch a game, I'd rather watch hockey and baseball than anything.
It's such complete opposite sports too. The speed of hockey and the pace of baseball so completely different. The violence and anger in hockey versus the poetry of baseball. That's interesting. I struggle to watch baseball, but listen, I've been brought up on ice hockey. So when you've watched ice hockey, 80, 100 times a year for 45 years of your life, everything else, the pace of the other sports might seem slow to you, Bryan, or, to, a person in Kentucky, but it's even slower to a person who grew up watching hockey. Bryan, the follow-up question to that is, we said, okay, you don't handicap soccer, you don't handicap rugby, cricket, whatever the case may be. Probably stay away from the XFL, the WNBA. Do you bet those sports at all? As far as, are you getting information? Because I know you're very well connected in Vegas, and I know that you talk to a lot of the handicappers. Are you betting those sports based on people you trust?
Yes, I do. I just actually, one of our former handicappers, Cheetah, who's gone on to ESPN, I just met up with him the other day, and we had a nice talk, and we discussed on some of the guys that we use for certain sports. And I buy other sports services. I trade other sports services. In baseball, I basically handicap full game. I do a little bit of half 5 innings. I do a little bit of first inning. But I've got other guys who do props, and they do strikeouts, and they do hits, and who will have more total bases and that kind of stuff. So I trust other people for my betting, because I couldn't make a living based on the amount of plays that I release to our clients, because I need to have more than what I give out. I'm a pretty, like I said, a conservative guy. In a normal baseball day, I'll have 3 plays, but I'm probably betting 10
Right.
plays, because I'm betting in different things. So we got soccer guys. I got to tell you, from MMA, we've got 2 of the best MMA handicappers that I follow on our site. There's a couple others that follow also.
Do you know that Handsome Kyle is, and I could be wrong, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's 91% in 2020 betting. I mean, it is.
Yeah, this is just the guys from WagerTalk. I know we got guys over at Sports Memo that are just as good too. I mean, we've just to be able to find these sports where you've got 3 or 4 guys and a couple of them agree on a game. Nobody goes against each other in the fights. I mean, I've had tremendous success. That's the one drawback of right now is the MMA played last week. They have one scheduled for a couple days from now. They canceled it. That's the sad part. Hopefully the MMA will get back. It probably will get back sooner than the other sports. But yeah, we've got guys that are really good. I've got a friend of mine here in Vegas that handicaps the Olympics, and he does the downhill skiing and all this other shit. I don't know anything about that, but I know the guy spends months working on this stuff. So if he gives me some information,
skiing?
of course I'm going to bet it.
Wow.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, tobogganing and all that other shit.
Man, come on. There's no tobogganing betting. Come on. Okay.
Downhill racing,
you're
whatever.
reminding me of Vegas Dave, and I want everyone to know. And
oh yeah, the curling bets.
I don't even know whether to
he's now
take you seriously.
Curling.
Everybody, Vivian.
No, he's now handicapping curling.
Vivian just became a follower of Vegas Dave on Twitter. Look, I'm not here to talk about Vegas Dave, but I mean, it is the funniest stuff it's a freaking comedy story, man. This guy is taking a picture, a video of his woman bending over in a thong. It is absolutely hilarious stuff. But Bryan, one of the most, really the takeaway from what I'm hearing from you is, and me and you need to do a show on this, and we really need to delve into this deeper, because everybody always says, if you're so good, why do you sell picks? Who would buy picks? Why would someone buy picks? Blah 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 blah. I mean, it's so constant in our lives. You buy picks.
Everybody I know who bets for a living either buys or trades picks with other people. You try the ability to get a bet in for any type of amount is very small. I knew this was bad when this was like 20 years ago. I went in to bet at the Stardust an NBA total. They would only give me $500. I said, "This is the Stardust. I can't get an NBA total for more than $500." And they said no. And I said, this industry is going to hell when it comes to that kind of shit. So now you talked about the XFL. I used to handicap all the smaller leagues, and it got to the point where you can't get enough money down on it. So I'd rather have somebody else, like I think Teddy does them. And I'd rather have Teddy give me the information instead of me having to spend the hours and hours to do it. I'd rather get Teddy's information and bet it off of that. But there's guys out there that do tennis. Tennis is one of those sports that are great to bet, especially if you can bet in-game tennis. Brian, tennis is the way to go.
I got to stop you really quickly. This is going to shock you. I mean, you might look. You're a smart guy. You might know this, but I'm going to think you don't. There is more actual, not dollar, number. There is more tennis bets than any other sport in the entire world. Did you know that?
I knew that. Tennis, soccer, take a look at the Canadian sports. I joked about curling earlier. Curling's big in Canada, man. I go, you would know better than anybody.
It's massive.
Take a look at cricket. People. We just had one of our handicappers in town the other day, and he was originally from Ireland, and he talked darts with us. We went out for Monday Night Football or some get together, and he was talking about how big darts were in Ireland. And I see these crowds at these dart matches, and I'm going, they're throwing a freaking dart. How exciting is this? But yet people bet it. And now you see on Twitter, people are betting the horse racing, they're betting rugby, they're betting these sports that nobody cares about just because they want to get a bet in. It's just so many opportunities out there. Baseball, soccer. I mean, there's so many different soccer leagues out there. Carmine will tell you that if you specialize in one of these smaller soccer leagues, maybe you can only get $300 down on a game. But you're getting a play that you have a 65% chance of winning at $300. I'll take that over a $1,000 bet that has a 53% chance of winning.
No, great point. Guys, I just want to cover some of the comments that have been made. Avocados with a Q. Listen, the thing with betting tennis is very interesting. You ask, what are the lines usually? -110 to -140? Well, yes. If Federer is playing Nadal, it's probably -110 to -140. There's a lot of different levels in betting tennis. When you look at the majors, I mean, you're going to have the first 3 or 4 rounds extremely lopsided. You're going to have -800s, -1200s. But you're also going to have opportunities to bet, in 3 sets. How many games, Joe Nobody gets off of Nadal. So there are a lot of bets inside of the game as well. In-game betting in tennis is really the core of tennis betting right now. It's the driving force. I actually am going to Wimbledon this year, if there is a Wimbledon, and if there is a this year. And I know, because I'm very involved in tennis, that the tennis organizations are actually meeting on a regular basis discussing how to make tennis a more betting-friendly sport, because there is, without the in-game betting, it is really hard to bet, Roger Federer -82,000 versus Bryan Leonard. But that's the majors. Those are the big tennis events. One of our customers put in, I think might have been Johnny, I don't know, a listener, a viewer, our boss, whatever, that tennis is one of the most fixed sports in the world. Yes, it is. And same with cricket. And we've had an unbelievable amount of people in the last 20 years get caught fixing cricket matches. It actually has been very public In regards to tennis, the difference with tennis is to get an ATP point, you can go to Kenya and play in the Kenyan Open. You could go to these, I think there's 4 majors, there's 16 minor majors, and then there's like tournaments all over the place where people are playing that nobody has ever heard of. And yes, there is supposedly fixing in that, although it has not been as publicly caught as something like cricket. Yeah, so Brian, really, I love the fact that you buy plays. It's amazing. And I think it's something, Johnny, you and I need to talk about, because the fact that our handicappers that we sell buy plays from each other, trade plays with each other. I can't see any more proof of the credibility of what we do and how good our information is. And I'm not saying ours is in mine and Bryan's. I'm talking about, the reputable people inside of this industry. I don't think there's any greater statement than Bryan talking about the fact that he takes his money and buys people's plays. Bry?
Yep. Like I said, nobody knows everything about everything. And if you do, you're wrong. It's impossible to do. But if Dave Koken knows baseball, I want to either get his plays or I want to listen to his opinion. We talked about this, Dave and I, when this regular season starts, we will be doing a show together, and we both are doing it for a selfish reason. We both want to hear what the other person has to say, because Dave's got great baseball information. I've got great baseball information. There's other guys on the site that are great in the NBA. There's other guys, Ski. Look at Ski since he's been on the site. How great he's been in the NBA. I want to get that information. Love to listen to him speak about the NBA, and which is these daily shows on the basis. You got your NBA guys that are really good. There's just so many guys on both these sites that are good at what they do, and they're handicapping some sports that I don't handicap, or they're handicapping a conference that I don't handicap. There's guys that I know that handicap in football, the Big Ten, and that's all they do. That's the information I want to buy. If a guy's doing the ACC in basketball, that's all he does. That's the information I want.
Yeah. Yeah, Nevers asks, what are your thoughts on fixed games? Dude, we have no thoughts on fixed games. It sucks. What do you want us to tell you? But you're so right, Bryan. And for me, as one of the owners of WagerTalk and Sports Memo, I have access to everybody's plays every day. And, I look at it and I say, Dave Koken in college football. I don't care if you, Bryan, you do college football every year. You're famous for these win-loss total bets that you make early in the summer. You've got to be betting Dave Koken's plays alongside yours, right? You just have to be.
Yeah, if I have the information, I do it. And it's just not Dave, it's a lot of guys. I went to Akron University for a long time before they raised the limits on the MAC. They were circled for a long time. And so the Billy Walters, those kind of guys weren't interested in betting $1,000 a game. They wanted to bet $100,000 a game. So they wouldn't play the MAC. And I played the MAC. And that's how I got my reputation, was how good I did in the MAC. Now the MAC is on the regular board, so it gets the same limits as everybody else. So now the Billy Walters and the big bettors are spending the time on it. But for years, those lines were so bad in the MAC because the sports book knows nobody could bet more than $500. It's sort of like betting the WNBA, the XFL, some of these other leagues. They can lower their risk by only letting you bet $500, $300 a game. And when you're starting out, to anybody who's just starting out and wants to do their own handicapping, start off in those type of games, those type of leagues. I talked about, Spanish soccer or Russian whatever. Just something that most people aren't betting. And if you can handicap that, and all the information's out there on the internet, you can get good percentage bets in. You just won't be able to get as much money on them.
He's Bryan Leonard, one of the most knowledgeable and nicest guys you'll ever find in this industry. We love having you on, Bryan. When baseball comes back, you will be a regular on First Pitch, which I'm super excited about. Bryan, you moved to Las Vegas. Why? Would you like it? What has changed in your life? Do you ever see yourself moving back to Cleveland or Akron or?
Well, I lived in Cleveland.
I saw the Grateful Dead in Cleveland.
You saw the Grateful Dead? They probably played there. I just not my type of music. But yeah, grew up in Cleveland. Went to University of Akron. That's where I got my degree in business. But I moved to Las Vegas because I did radio shows back in Cleveland. But I would do them all, it seemed, all outside of Cleveland. Because back when you're in Nebraska, you're in Idaho, you're in Pittsburgh, there's not a lot of sports gambling talk on the radio. So I moved out here with my wife, and she's in the medical field. And we moved out here in '97, and I've been out here ever since. And the main reason was to bet, obviously, and also to get on local radio and do a lot more sports handicapping from that regard. Here's a funny story for you. And I hope I haven't said this before. I probably have, but I used to come out here and we'd stay at one of the local casinos and we go out gambling there. And one day I had some friends from Cleveland come in. They were staying at the Treasure Island, and I had a friend pull me over and he goes, "Got a question for you, serious question. Where do you get your groceries?" I said, "The grocery store?" Because all he saw was the Strip. He had never been off the Strip. He thought the entire city was the Strip. I said, "Dude, this is like any other city. We play softball. Kids have soccer matches. We go to movies. We have all this other stuff going on. It's just like a normal city outside of the Strip." But I got to tell you, after living in Las Vegas, and I know a lot of guys try to move back wherever else they're at. I don't know how the hell they do it. I'm not a guy who stays up till 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, going to the clubs. But if I decide at 4 o'clock in the morning, I want to go to a movie, I want to go to a show, I want to do this, I want to do that, I can do that kind of thing. I can go out for a nice dinner at 4 o'clock in the morning. All the other, I love Cincinnati, but Cincinnati rolls up the sidewalks at 8 p.m. at night. I mean, I could never go back to another city after being in Las Vegas. And luckily, I don't think I have to unless the wife really forces me. Right. But I don't see that happening. But yeah, that's the big difference between Las Vegas and everywhere else is most people just see the Strip. They see downtown. They never get into the neighborhoods. The only bad thing about it is where you grow up, you have decades and generations of people who know each other. In Vegas, you have such a transient area, sort of like LA, the West Coast, a lot of transient area where one day I'll be doing a radio show with Joe Schmo. 2 weeks later, I'll go to do the radio show. I go, "Where's Joe?" They go, "Oh, he moved back to Montana." You see a lot of that around here. There's a lot of guys that I've got to know over the years who either were broke here or something happened. They weren't able to make it, but they moved out. So it's a tough environment when everything out here is not as expensive as LA and California, but it is still expensive. It's not as expensive as Toronto that you're accustomed to, but it's a great city, but it's tough to find friends as an adult. And so that's why I'm lucky to meet everybody at WagerTalk and know all the people out there, and they're all good people.
We love you, Bry. Neverus asks,
Thank you.
What's your favorite casino? I mean, that's tough. I mean, I know for Bryan, it's, what's his favorite sports book to sit in and watch? I mean, look, if you're a poker player, your favorite casino is the Aria or the Wynn. If you're a playboy like Handsome Kyle, your favorite place might be, the Encore. If you're a sports bettor, you might like Westgate. Bry, where do people find you on a Sunday afternoon in October?
They find me at home if it's football season. I'm not leaving the house. I've got all the apps from all the casinos. I don't have a favorite casino. I would guess My favorite casinos are the ones that comp you for sports betting. And there's not many of them out there. Caesars does right now. Stations Casino does. The Orleans, I believe, does. Um, Coast Properties. If I'm going to make a bet and I can get comps on it, I'd prefer to go there. Another one would be, which is easiest to get in and out of. I mean, if you're running around trying to get these lines, and let's say you don't have one of your apps loaded, you've got to drive around a little bit. Whichever ones you can get in and out of and get that bet in as quick as possible is my favorite. I'm not going to say never, but I rarely sit in the sports book and watch sports because I would rather do it at home. That way I can bet live betting for the most part, and I can do some other things while we're on commercials as opposed to being in the sports book. And you know, the Westgate's got a great system up there on Sundays where they got all the games in the big theater, but it just confuses me, and I would rather sit at home and do it. If I will go out for like the Super Bowl or the NCAA championship or something like that, we'll get a bunch of guys together, we'll meet at a bar and watch the games. But on a daily basis, I'd rather just be home and do it.
Guys, we're going to wind the show down in the next few minutes. Sean Bird, loving having you on with us. Your comments have been outstanding. Thank you. In regards to Dave Williams on Monday, hell yeah, we're going to talk cooking. I'm actually going to force the guy to give us some recipes. In case you guys don't know, not only is Dave Williams the number one Magic the Gathering player on the planet, a top 10 poker player of all time, he came second in MasterChef. And as for you, Kyle, when you do come on, we got to talk about your time. I can't remember. Which is the one at the Rio, Dave? Bryan, I know you go there a lot. Is it Chippendales at the Rio?
I believe they are at the Rio.
Yeah, so, Kyle, we need to definitely discuss the 6-month stint you did at the Rio, taking your clothes off to lunatic, soon-to-be brides. Thoughts on Peterborough? Who the hell has a thought on Peterborough, Eric? Bri, I can't thank you enough for doing this with us. Everybody make sure to ring the bell. Click the bell. Do something with the bell. There's some bell that needs to be touched. Monday and Tuesday is Meet the Experts starting immediately. Koken will be on. Ralph will be on. Rob Vino will be on. We will have Ski and Tony. We will get to everybody. Even if sports come back, we're going to continue the Meet the Experts until all the experts have been done. So Monday and Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern is Meet the Experts. Wednesday is Straight from the Strip. We are working on the timing now. We will tweet it out. I'm hoping it'll be at 1 p.m. as well. Straight from the Strip is Minty, Kelly, and Gianni. On Thursday, we will have Betting 101 with Minty and Teddy. And on Friday, we will have Marco and Sig with the Pony Pundits. Kyle, what do you think, dude? Should we do a Monday workout show, just like literally workout live and have people log on? I think if you do it, we could maybe, as Vivian said, get a few more women watching these things. Bri, last question, and then we'll call it a day. Just one. What is the number one thing that people need to know or do in order to be a winning sports bettor?
Don't bet over your head. Most guys I know that bet for a living bet 2% of their bankroll or less on each game. You've got to be in it long enough for the tides to turn if you're on a losing streak. We've all been on losing streaks. I had a terrible one last year. But I bounced back strong to have a nice winning year. So just don't bet over your head. If you don't got a lot of money, bet small. Nobody cares what you bet, to be honest with you. There's guys in the sports books that go up and bet $5. I see him right in front of a guy who's betting 20,000. So nobody cares. Whatever you can do, just learn from your losses, learn from your wins, go back and research what happened in the game to see what you had right or if you got lucky. Because a lot of times luck is a major factor in these games. and just don't bet it over your head and stick in it for the long run.
Brian, I got to comment on that because it's such a great point, and
Okay.
it's something that I haven't actually spoken about. When my friends talk to me about sports betting, I always say the number one thing is to not what I call stretch the envelope. And what I mean by that is a lot of us are sports betting for the enjoyment of the game, for the adrenaline rush, and for the excitement of the entertainment value. There are very few people that make a living betting sports. You do, I do, a bunch of guys in our world do, but we're talking about 1%, 2% of all sports bettors. 98, 99% of all sports bettors are betting from an entertainment perspective. And when I say don't stretch the envelope, if you are enjoying being a $20 bettor and it's providing you with the adrenaline that you need to watch the games, it's providing you with a reason to watch a game that doesn't have your team in it, don't change that $20 bet. Brian, I have been betting, give or take, the same amount for 25 years. Now, it is a percentage of my bankroll, which is why it has become, some bets are bigger and some bets are smaller, depending on what my run is. But I have never, ever wavered from 3, 4, 5% of my bankroll in 25 years. If you are a $20 bettor and one day you really, really like a team and you lay $200 down on that team, you have screwed up what $20 bets have done for your life. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I know guys in the sportsbook industry. You would think in the sportsbook industry, whoever makes the biggest bet will move the line. That's not the case at all. There's guys in the industry. Years ago, I used to talk to the guys, and they said, we move off of $20 in the NBA. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, there's a guy who only bets $20 a game, and he is so good that we move the line based on his $20 bet as opposed to other guys who may be betting $20,000 because they have them charted, and in the long run, they're losing money. Why would they want to move the line based on that? They move the line on the guy who wins more than he loses, and that happened to be a guy with $20. And I said, why doesn't the guy ever raise his bets? He goes, that's what the guy's comfortable with. He's comfortable with $20 and he wins. So it makes no difference what you bet. They move the line on who is going to win. If a guy comes in who is a 60% winner in the NFL and he places a bet, regardless of what he bets, they're going to move that line as opposed to somebody coming in who's a poker player. Who, Charles Barkley is a big bettor. And he used to come into town and he would bet a lot of money. They don't care because Charles was never a winner. And Charles will tell you that. So just stick with what you bet. And if it's $20, it's $20. If you're winning, at the end of the year, if you're up $1,000 and the guy betting $20,000 is losing, he's losing, you're winning. It doesn't matter what your initial bets are. It's what happened at the end of the year.
Yeah, well said. For some reason, people keep asking me what your opinion on Carmine is. I have no idea why they're asking me that. I don't even know whether you have a relationship with Carmine. I freaking love the guy. He's like one of my best friends in the world and one of the most savvy sports bettors you'll ever meet in your life. I don't know why they're asking me, but this will be the last question of the show. You have an opinion on Carmine?
I love Carmine.
Okay, there you go.
The unfortunate part is I don't get to see him as much when he's out here because he's running to these expensive restaurants and drinking the expensive drinks. But no, he's not only a great handicapper, but he's a nice guy and he does a lot of charity work. And that means a lot to me is he does things for other people. And that's a soft spot for me. It's like Kelly does things for her dogs and Minty does these things. I love people who go out of their way to do things for other people, other animals, to make the world a better place. And Carmine's one of those guys. I truly respect him.
That is so well said. I mean, Carmine posted on Facebook recently, anybody stocking doors, that can't go out, let me know if you need me to pick up something. A guy shows up to your house with food. Well said. With that said, Carmine runs the gamut when drinking. From 1 drink to 10 drinks, he is incredible. Loving, kind, boisterous, and fun. From 10 on, he's Italian. I'm the Prez. Make sure to check out tomorrow's show. It's straight from the strip with Kelly, VR, Ace, Gianni, same guy, and Minty. It'll be an amazing show. We're hoping to do it at 1 p.m. Eastern, but I have to confirm that with the guests. Thank you, everybody, for watching Meet the Experts. I personally will see you back next Monday with Dave Williams, and then Tuesday I will have either Dave Koken or Ralph Michaels on. Bryan, dude, an hour and 10 minutes. It was so great. Hour and 15 minutes. It was so great. I mean, honestly, this was one of my favorite Meet the Experts to date. Thank you.
Great. You're very welcome, sir.
Okay, but everybody, be safe, stay indoors, and let's get this coronavirus over and done with.